What? What? I'll have it later.
Okay, we are on live. That's good. Yeah, okay. Or where to get some questions. Yeah, welcome to live section where we discussing ask me anything, and here today to answer as many questions as possible. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Deji Nehan, and today I'm talking everything financial planning, mortgage, property investment, what type of property to invest in, what best location, and how much can you start with, what does affordability looks like. Just generally every question that might come up as part of investigating or doing your research in getting a property or living in the UK. Maybe you might be new in the UK, you might be someone that's been here for a long time. So I just talk generally, this is just to um, give us a bit of foundation in terms of the things we will discuss. So bear with me. This one change. Yeah, let's keep trying to just. Okay, let me see some of the charts going on. Okay, so just fundamental things. Um, One of the things people actually should, what does it take to invest in the UK? What does it take to maybe to buy my first home? What does it take, or what do I need to do in terms of getting a mortgage in the UK? So just to simplify that question, there are a few components that we need to be aware of as part of this. One of that is before you can get a property in the UK, the idea of getting a property by mortgage is checking that you have the ability to be able to pay this mortgage on an ongoing basis, depending on the number of years you take. So it might be 10 years, might be 15 years, might be 20 years. We have mortgage up to 40 years sometimes. So if you think about that, how do you consistently are in a position to be able to pay your mortgage? That comes strictly on what is your income, because your regular income would support how you pay the mortgage. So, important thing that most lenders, all lenders will consider is what is your income, and on your income, they will usually have a multiples between maybe 4.45 to sometimes six times of your income. So what that means is, say for example, you are earning 10,000. It means if you're going to 4.45, they will multiply that by 10,000. If you are earning six times, it will be six multiples, it will be like 60,000 you can borrow. That just gives us an idea of what that's the foundation of getting your mortgage. Are you able to be able to pay this mortgage to the future? Because the mortgage can be for 25 years, it could be for 40 years. So are you able to pay the mortgage for a long period? That's one important thing. So whatever you're doing around mortgage, always consider your affordability. And there are calculators you can use that will just give you a very generic idea of what your affordability is. Either you are getting regular income from employment or you are self employed. That would then be based on your last 2 years of income, because you will do your self assessment after the year. So that's the fundamental part of it. The other part of it is the lenders will not give you 100% of the mortgage. So they need to know, do you have skin in the game? What that means is, do you have a deposit to put in? Because in the past, people have had 100% mortgage. And what that does is usually it means that if there is any issues, if there's any problem, the person that has a 100% mortgage would not mind to drop everything and say, I can't continue going on with this mortgage, which means that it will become an additional headache for the lender. So they want to see, do you have a skin in the game? So usually for residential mortgage, they would expect you to have 10% skin in the game. Some would go up to 95%, some would go stuff. And there are scheme that gives you 100%, but I would explain that later because there are a lot of questions around that. Sometimes I just say you need to weigh the options. Not all the options will work for everybody. So you need to know what options will work for you. So talking about the fundamentals of getting a mortgage, like you said, your affordability based on your income, your skin in the game, the deposit amount you put in. And in the UK, they want to see your track record because your credit history speaks about how you have used your credit, how you have run your financial life in the UK, because it's an indicator to know what is likely to be the issue in the future. So what that means is if you've had missed payments, you have CCJ, you have default and all of that, a lender will take you differently from someone that doesn't have those issues. And it will determine the type of lender you can go to. It will determine the kind of mortgage you can get, and it would even determine the kind of rate you can get. Just to put it out there, having a bad credit by itself does not mean you cannot get a mortgage. It just means that you would be considered differently. So day in, day out, we have people that have bad credit. It could have been something that I are aware of or something they are not aware of because a lot of people been in situations that they're not aware of. So that's just something there. So three important things: deposit, your credit history in the UK, and your affordability. Can you afford to pay this mortgage on a consistent basis? That's very fundamental in getting a mortgage. So that's the first thing help you to check. We call this an affordability check. And it's just not the quick assessment you will do online. It's really looking in detail across these three segments and be able to ensure that you can get a mortgage. And if that is a possibility, then we issue something called a decision in principle, which is something that gives you an idea of how much you can get from a lender, and we will consider multiple lenders for your purpose. So that's one fundamental thing that most people want to know about. It's about, what do I need to do to get a mortgage? So please, if you're just joining, please leave a message in the comments. We'll try and answer as many questions as we can get. So just, we are talking about the fundamentals about getting a mortgage. Yes, I said I would address some things later. There are mortgages now, they said you would have only 5,000 to 5,000 as part of your skin in the game to come in. Some would say 100%, but still, based on that, they still check your affordability. They check what can you afford to pay on a regular basis. So it is still based on your income. It's still based on other factors. So it's usually the lower of this. So it's not straight out, you get a mortgage 100%, you won't put anything down. Yes, there's a possibility of that, but it's based, some of that is based on your history of paying rent. If they know that you can consistently pay this rent, they give them an indication for some first-time buyers, for them to use those special products. It could be 5,000 deposits, it could be 100% mortgage. There are a few options out there, but not everybody would qualify for this. No, people ask the question, not everybody would qualify for this. Again, we would help you to do a full assessment and to know what is the best product for you. Just so that people understand, yes, sometimes people want to get the lowest amount they can put in, but in reality, the more amount you can put in, the better the interest rate you would get. But maybe sometimes that's not a priority for people. They just want to get on the ladder first, and then in a few years, they'll be able to adjust themselves. So do not delay the process because you feel the interest rate is high at this point. It might just be the way you are coming in, because someone that has a 10% deposit will be treated differently for someone that has a 5% deposit, or someone that has 15% or 20%. So the more the deposit you have, the lower the interest rate you would qualify for. So, but let that not be the primary decision. I think what is important, like I tell everybody, is you want to know on a full spectrum what mortgage you would qualify for, and then you will decide what's the best thing for you. So as you know, the more you wait in terms of buying a property, the more it becomes maybe unachievable, or the more it becomes maybe more difficult. What that means is, because property value has increased over the years, and possibly your income may not have increased significantly to that level. So I always encourage people, start with where you are. Don't wait to jump on the property ladder. Start with where you are, and then you can increase in the future. The important thing is you are using the money you want to pay for rent, you're using it to pay into your own mortgage. Yes, I know there is question or dialogue around, is it worth buying a property in the first place? In simple terms, I always say, if you don't have any other major asset class, property is just a vehicle to wealth creation. If you don't have any asset class, your home is possibly the first investment for most people. So if you delay, one, age would be a factor. because that will start determining what lenders you can go for. Two, the property has increased in value. So you have to be mindful of that. If you don't have any business you're doing, if you don't have any other vehicle, property will possibly be the most easiest solution for most people. One is because it's where you live in, because you would always live somewhere. Either you're buying or you're renting, you would always live somewhere. So you want to think about it. Do I want to take the money I'm using for rent to actually find a way to get on the property ladder? So that's the way people see it. But I do not suggest that's the only solution for some people. Some people might be living in an area that they like, but they can't afford the property there. So it might mean that they will take their money and invest in something else. They might have a business that they believe that they can invest in the business and the business is growing as well. They might decide, oh, I can't afford to buy property in this area and I don't want to move out of the area I am. I want to buy a buy-to-let investment somewhere else. All of this is just depending on your thinking. What's important is make sure your money is growing for you. That's what is very important. Make sure your money is growing for you. Not a situation where you are leaving your money in the bank and the bank is giving you next to nothing on interest. And more importantly, they are lending the money to someone else or to some other people that want to buy property or business or any of those things. So that's important to say. So look at your situation and determine, with the help of a specialist, a mortgage broker, a financial advisor, to determine what's the best solution for you. But on general terms, property ownership will possibly be the primary investment for most people. You need to understand how it works. So if we go deeper into that, because people ask, okay, how is that going to help me? And some people might say, oh, I'm just here for a short time. I'm going to travel back to my home or whatever that is. Again, based on the fact that we have to live somewhere, the money you pay in rent becomes sunk cost. It's something that you cannot get back. But whatever you are invested in property, either for yourself, it's an investment for the future. Generally, statistics shows that property increase average 10% in most areas in the UK. I say be pessimistic and think it's maybe 5% or maybe it's 7%, whatever that is. So what it means is if you buy a property for 100,000 in 10 years, if we're going by the average, in 10 years, that property would have doubled in value. And I'll tell you what that equity means later. But in 10 years, that property would have doubled in value. Let's even take a pessimistic view. Let's say it's 5%. That means in 20 years, that property has doubled in value. Most times, if it's your residential property, because you're paying repayment mortgage, which means you're paying both the capital and the interest, you are paying down the mortgage, which then allows you to reduce your mortgage. But let's now move to, say, 10 years or maybe 5 years. That property increase, that means the property you bought at this point that's increased in value to that increase in value is called your equity. It's an equity that you have built up. So remember previously, if you're starting from scratch, maybe you bring in 10%. Property is worth 100,000, and that's 10,000. So in your property, the lender has given you 90,000, and then your share is 10,000. So that's your equity. Say over the years, that same property has increased to 200, just for easy calculation, over 10 years. Let's imagine you've not paid down your mortgage. The 90,000 mortgage you took before is still 90,000. Let's just use that as an example. But now your property is worth 200. So the equity you have in that property is now 110, as against the 10,000 that you started with, if it's something that you've not paid down. So let's imagine that's a buy-to-let investment. But if it's a mortgage that you are paying down, you're most likely having no mortgage at that point or less mortgage. So that determines the equity you have. And most times, that equity is what builds the next property for people. That's what builds the next investment. People might do 2-3 investments over the years because of starting on just one ladder. So that's why it's important for us to actually understand how property structure works. It's a leverage because you don't need to bring down all of the money as against other investments, maybe shares, crypto, and any of those other options. But it allows you to build something slowly while you are running your daily life. Like I said, affordability is one of the major aspects of getting a property. You're working, that's very good because you need to be working in to get income before you can actually get a mortgage and stuff. So, but the important thing is you are silently building a wealth that you've not actively worked for. So that's really the game changer when you think about property. So that's a question people ask. Maybe people don't understand it, especially if you're coming from a country that do not have a mortgage system, or you've not been aware of how credit works. So that's, in simple terms, one of the major factor in terms of property. So if there's any question around that, I'll take that question. Yeah, see if there are questions, other questions. Yeah. Yeah, no other question we can see here. Don't forget, if you have any question, please drop it in the chat. Let's make this engaging. I'm just coming up some of the regular questions I have. So that's property. It's an interesting thing. I challenge everybody to understand how it works well, because that would make a big difference in terms of your building wealth in the UK. And with property, you can build generational wealth and stuff. So that's the major aspect. About buy to let, the major difference about buy to let is, yes, it's not based on your affordability because someone is paying the rent. But the important thing is most buy to lets would need a bigger deposit, a bigger skin in the game. They would usually do 25% deposit. So let's take the same example. Property of 100,000, you would need 25,000 as deposit for you to be able to get into the property investment. Yes, a few lenders are doing 80% loan to value. Loan to value means the loan amount to the value of the property. So most buy to let will be 75%. You will bring in 25%. That 25% is your deposit. That 25% becomes your own skin in the game. It becomes your own share of the asset. It becomes your equity that you build in over time. So I've explained how equity works, how we build equity to enable us to fund the next property investment, to fund the future, to fund retirement, and to do other important things. So that's the fundamental about property. Don't think about it just as this is somewhere I'm living. Think about it as it's a reserve of future wealth, because that's an asset that most people would build without thinking much, because it's a fundamental need that we need somewhere to live. So that's the way you think about it. But if you want to now explore it further, you want to think, how is this going to make an impact in the future? How is this going to support my retirement? How is this going to be? I mean, it's not unusual. People say my home, my property is my retirement pot. It's my pension pot. So that's the way it works. That's the long-term view of that. So that's what's important about that. So talking about retirement pot, talking about stuff, I just feel like it's important you start thinking ahead. Right? What is going to be my retirement? Some people are getting pension. Make sure that you collect all of your pension together. Possibly put it in your own pot that you have control over. There are things like SAS and SIP. That's an advanced strategy, but it's what is actually if you are thinking of property investment. If you have any questions around SAS and SIP, we can go further into that. But in simple terms, it's just building your pension pot. But now being the administrator or appointing people to administer that asset class for you. And the good thing about SIPs and SAS is it allows you to buy into commercial properties and allows the owner of the pension to be able to borrow up to 50% of that asset. Most pensions are locked up for when you retire at 65 or 67 or 68, whatever the pension age is. But at that time, it becomes people don't have the energy to do much more. But if you have a pension you control in SIPs or in SARS, then it means that you can leverage it as best as possible. It just means that you become your own bank. So people should think about it, especially if you have been able to build a pension pot in previous employment. Think about how can you structure that pension pot to be able to fund your own self-administered pension, and then you can have control over that pension and use it for your future. So don't think of pension as something that you just see when you're 68 or thereabout. It's something that with the right strategy, like I said, using SIP or SARS, with the right strategy, you can leverage on it for growing your property portfolio. I hope that is good. Yeah. So we talked about baseline property, baseline buy-to-let. What's important, I only encourage people to understand the buy-to-let game, to understand investment, to understand property, to understand the areas they're investing in. As we know about property, it is mainly talking about location. The location you invest in matters a lot. So find the right location that works, not just that is working right now. Because if it's a location that is working now, possibly the potential has already been achieved. Look for areas that are regeneration areas. Look at areas that are coming up. Look at areas that are close to transport link. Look at areas that have major infrastructures. Look for areas that big companies are going into. Look for areas that the government is pumping money into, and you can tap in early and grow with that. That's the smartest way to find property at the bottom price point and make sure that you come in early and grow your property equity by the thing that is happening around. So that's a major thing to catch on with property. Be very savvy when you are thinking about property. Do your research, do the locations, speak to insiders in the industry, because most times we know what areas people are putting money in, the government is putting money in. We know areas that the real network is changing. We know areas that there are regenerational plan that the government is pushing, and so much of that. So be wise when you are investing. Don't just invest to say, oh, this is where I live, this is what I know, I'm going to invest in this, especially if it is your buy-to-let investment. Even if it's not your buy-to-let investment, most people will say, I can't afford to get on a property ladder now. What should I do? I tell that go to as far as possible that your money can afford and start from there. And people might think, oh, yes, maybe it's too far from work and stuff. But the good thing about UK is, yes, it will cost you maybe more to come to work, but you would realize that there is a good train network, which means that you are not missing out. Because if you delay the idea of getting on the property ladder long enough, it almost become out of price for most people. So don't focus on this is the area, this is my best place I want to say. Focus on areas that you think will grow in value, but more importantly, start with where you are. People ask the question about, should I start with a flat? Should I start with a house? The major difference in those two is, in terms of the ownership structure in the UK, a flat is usually a leasehold, which means that you do not own the land that the property is built on, but you have a lease. It could be 99-year lease. Some are 999, 1,000 year lease. But for a freehold, you own the property and you own the land that the property is on. So that's the major difference. So yes, with a leasehold, you possibly will be paying a service charge to the to the freeholder, you'll be paying ground rent and all of that, which is not a bad thing. But you have to be careful. There are some areas that are charging exorbitant amounts of money for service charge. So understand that before you make your move. Don't let that be the reason why you are not doing stuff. Because if a flat is where you can start, if it's a studio flat, if it's a one-bed flat is where you can start, it makes sense for you to start there, get in, lock in, and get the capital appreciation. When you're ready to move, at least that property would have increased in value. If you consider the other dimension of make sure you're buying in the right property, make sure you are negotiating properly and you're not paying over the price for a property. So you would realize that even when you buy a leasehold, in the future, you have built in some equity that would allow you to then decide to go for a freehold. But saying that, there are some properties in the UK, some parts of Manchester and other areas that are a house, but they are still a leasehold. So just bear that in mind. The major thing is don't let that be the reason you are not taking action, because there will be so many excuses. There's every chance and every excuse not to do something or to delay doing it. Be aware of those things and make the right informed decision. Ask the right question. Again, if you can afford to get to a house straight, that's fine. Do that. But the most important thing is, if you can, without delaying further, start with where you are. That's the important thing. Let your money start working for you. Let it grow for you. So that's the important thing when we are thinking about where to invest. Should I invest now and stuff? Because I see like most times we take work seriously, which is very good, but we don't take our future thinking that important. Because you see I know people that say, oh, I want to buy a house, I want to do this. 3 years down the line, we're still having that conversation. Because time would go, time would fly. There will be reason to procrastinate. But when you can, with an accountable person, with your professional mortgage professional, make sure that you key in something. Key in early and start the process. Or else the future might mean something totally different. So that's fundamental to understand. Mortgage is usually the primary place for most people to start investment. I'm not saying it's the only investment, but it's the type of investment most people at their start would understand. Yes, some people might say, I don't have the lump sum. What else can I be doing? Yeah, maybe then you want to invest in stocks and shares. You can find a lot of platform that allows you to put your investment in. At least you are growing your money, but you have to be mindful that everything, even in property, has a risk. There's a risk of your investment going up and it's coming down. But think about it as not just one quick event. Think about it as a continuum. Over time, your investment would grow like anything. So there are times that property prices has dropped in your area, but when you think about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you now start understanding that over the years, different investment rates, different return on investment has happened on your property. So that's the thing. So one thing I see as a big mistake a lot of people make in the community is just thinking about property, thinking about things. I say first understand how the financial system work in the UK. That's to the best of your advantage. Getting on programs like this, understanding credit history, understanding your credit worthiness and stuff. If you are interested for us to assess your credit, please drop a message. We have a special link we can share with you that will allow you to access your credit in the UK, and we would help you to explain what that means to you. So reach out and we'll find you the right link to help you do that. But yes, talk about property. Some people love it. Some people say don't go on property. I always ask the people that say don't go on property, what are the alternatives? What would you recommend? And sometimes you realize that people don't know so much about what they are saying. They think like, oh, this is a scam, you're paying for so many years, you're not getting your money back, all of those things. But it's simple to understand. It's not that complicated. So it's simple to understand. Be mindful of who you take advice from. If you're taking advice from people that have been burnt, they are only sharing their story from being burnt. They are not telling you people that are possibly done well with the same situation. So be mindful who you take advice from. So that's very important. So fundamentally, most mistake that Africans make about investment and stuff is thinking with hope. Hope is something we are used to. It's going to be well. Things are going to go on well. We pray to God. All of this will be fine. But one important thing I see is you need to put a foundation in place. That foundation is very simple. It's putting your financial planning as a financial planner, qualified financial planner in the UK. One thing I tell people is what happens if this happens to you? And this could be so many things. And this is a question I'll encourage everybody to ask. Either you have a property or you don't. The question you need to ask in terms of financial security or financial planning or planning for the future, either you have children, either you have some debt, either you have family that you need to think about, not just yourself or your partner in this case. What happens if life event comes into play? Life event of, God forbid, I know that's what we say. What happens if death happens to you or to your partner or to someone you know? What happens if you are unable to work? Remember, I said the foundation of being able to pay a mortgage is based on our ability to work or based on our ability to get income. So think about it. What happens if you are unable to work? Either through sickness, this could be critical situation, it could be accident, it could be you're just not feeling well. What happens? I like people to take some time to think through that. That is the starting point for financial planning. That's the starting point for financial security. Because you would have seen situations where people would now to resort to GoFundMe to say, oh, we lost this person. Please, they've not made an adequate arrangement for stuff. Let's help and go fund that person. It might be the last resort, but do you want that to be your situation? If anything happens to you, do you want your family to be in a position where they are wondering what do they need to do? Or you want to put the basic structure in place to make sure that your family is taken care of? That if you have a mortgage, which is mostly one of the most expensive things for most people, that if you have a mortgage, that your mortgage is paid off and your family do not need to consign themselves with that hardship. So while planning for the future is great, while planning for investment is great, I suggest for everybody to put a structure of financial security in place. Get a protection in place for yourself if in the event of death, if in the event of sickness or critical illness, because statistics shows maybe 4 out of 10 people would have critical conditions, if not more. Statistics shows that over the years of a working lifetime, people will be out of job, either to accident or to sickness or thereabout. Or directly, it could be their partner, it could be their children that would stop them from going to work. So these are fundamental things. These are basic things that we need to start thinking about properly, not just thinking it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until it matters, then it becomes too late. It becomes a GoFundMe situation. It becomes a big deal for people to now see what do we need to do. And if you do not have a plan in place, then you just be scattering about. So that's important. In the UK, part of the system is making sure like you have your protection in place. Because when you need it most, when your family need it most, There might not be people that might support you. So you do not want to put yourself in that charity case that people would have to, oh, let's help out. If people want to help out, it should be out of their goodwill, not because there is no option. So please consider these basic things. And some people say, I have some level of stuff, but when I look over most of the plan I see that people have not understood what they need. Most people that have maybe talked about this before are possibly just from a sales angle and not understanding from a financial planning angle. What do you need protection for? Life insurance, critical illness, income protection, um, child benefits, and all of those things. What do you need it for? Why does it matter to your family? How should you calculate what you need to be covered for? What is the financial planning that you need to put in place for now and for the future of your family? So we take a different approach, thinking about understanding financial planning and helping you to put the right foundation in place, making sure it is tailored to your need, making sure your family is thought about holistically. And this is just not we're doing one part of this or we've done this without understanding the full implication. People don't understand the full implication of what they have been sold and what it matters. People don't understand that when you're thinking of financial protection, life insurance, critical illness, income protection is much more than the policy cover. Is the other benefits that you can tap into, benefits that you don't have to wait till when you make a claim, benefits that you can use now, benefit that helps you to better your health, benefit that helps you to structure things properly. A lot of people I speak to do not even understand having a trust structure means in the UK. They don't know if the policy is in a trust. They don't know if it's been protected properly. They don't know if anything happens to them, who will be the beneficiary, who would be the executors, who would be so many things. So there is a lot of things that people take for granted. And just by talking to a financial planner like myself, we can help you to put a foundation in place, a foundation that you understand, a foundation that you understand the purpose for it. So please, this is possibly one of the biggest thing I'm saying in the Black community. Do not take it for granted. Make sure that you put the right structure in place for the future of your children. That's very important. That leads me to the conversation around will. I know people don't like to think about those situations, but one of the things we are supporting with is we want to do a free will service for as many people as possible. So if you do not have the will, at this point, there's nothing stopping you, because all we are doing with combined and gone into partnership with a will company, and my company will do that free of charge for you. So please understand these things, understand inheritance tax, understand the impact of that, understand what could happen if in the future you need to go to a care home. Who is going to fund that care home? It could be the house that you have bought for many years that you don't have a mortgage on any longer. It could be that will be required to pay for your care fees just by not understanding what you need to do. So do the thing you need to do now so that you make sure that the future is taken care of. Do the things you need to do now to make sure that the structure works efficiently in terms of the tax implication, in terms of the benefit, in terms of what your children or your family will get from it. So very, very important. I just want to make sure that we understand those things. It's not something we talk about a lot, but please find a professional that's just not pushing on the sales, that wants to build something for you and for your family that works for you, that's ready to work with you over the years. Most of my clients I've worked with for many years, and it will still be the situation 20 years time, 30 years time, because it's important you understand holistic financial planning, not just a one-off planning that you hear from someone and then you run with it. Why are you buying property? What would that mean to you in 2 years' time or in 5 years' time? What structure should you have in place? Why do you want to invest in another property? Should you put it in a limited company? Should you put it in your name? There's so many questions people ask. So please make sure that these questions, you are asking them questions early and it's tailored to your scenario. Please, let's see if there's any questions. Again, please, if you join in, please drop comments, drop stuff. Okay, yeah, drop comment, drop stuff. Let's see if we can answer any other questions. Yeah, so properties, investment, financial structuring, it's very important conversations, and inheritance tax and planning for the future, very important baseline stuff. And generally, I mean, some of the questions I get is, where should I invest? I mean, maybe some people are not even based in the UK. They wonder, can I get a property if I'm not based in the UK? We have been able to help people from foreign nationals that do not live in the UK, Nigerian, Ghana, different African countries, different European countries, help them to get a property in the UK. Not just get a property in the UK, get a mortgage as well to support that. So if you are thinking of diversifying your wealth, diversifying your portfolio, maybe for example, let's take you live in Nigeria, you want to build a global wealth, you want to create a structure that just is not restricted to your jurisdiction in Nigeria, you want to expand into other jurisdiction. UK is a fantastic place. It has the history. It has the history to support the return on investment, but most importantly, it has the leverage. So take, for example, Nigeria. You have 200 million or 100 million. You possibly would buy one property in a location. You buy that 100%. There's no mortgage, because sometimes there are mortgage, but maybe the mortgage is just so crazy at the moment. We have some fantastic solutions to that. So if you're listening to this now or in the future and you want to understand if you can get a mortgage in Nigeria, please, we can support in that conversation. Maybe I'll talk about it shortly as well. But for a Nigerian living in Nigeria that wants to buy property in the UK, please come talk to us. We were in Nigeria in March doing a book launch to help people to understand how to invest in the UK. The good thing is you can invest in the UK from Nigeria. You can diversify your wealth. You can leverage the system. You can leverage the trust in the UK, because you can buy something and go to sleep without any concern. But more importantly, you can leverage the financial system to work for you. You can get loan from 5% to sometimes 6.5% that allows you to bring just a portion of the money. So, for example, we're talking about the 200 million. 200 million would mean you are buying one property and you're getting rent from that. If you take similar amounts and we structure it in a cross-border investment structure, where, say, for example, you want to invest in the UK, for easy calculation, that's almost 100,000. You can use that 100,000, maybe 90,000 or so. You can use it to invest in 2 properties or 3 properties. Ideally, maybe 2 properties, so that you can get property at a good mid-range that allows you to get return on investment. So that's important. So 200 million, you bring it into 200 million naira, you bring into a system like UK. It allows you to diversify that into 2 property. It means that you are getting rent from 2 places and your capital appreciation is happening on 2 properties. That is a fantastic way to build wealth, and you are not restricted to the country you are from. So for anybody on this listening or just jumping in, if you have any question, please drop your questions. But I'm talking now about cross-border investment. Either you live in Nigeria, you live in Ghana, you live in Africa or other parts, China or any places. UK allows you to buy a property in the UK and still get a mortgage. on a buy-to-let investment. So that's an important thing. That's the important thing for you to be aware of. It's a game changer for people. People don't realize that you can buy a property in the UK, for instance. People don't realize that you can actually get a mortgage if you're not based in the UK. So that's quite important stuff. So if you have any question around that, please reach out to us. We'll be able to take you through case studies, through scenarios that would make sense to you. So cross-border investment, for anybody looking at it, we would be able to help you. Okay, so some questions around, I'm in the UK and I've just come in Japa into the UK. What can I do? Previously, maybe in the last year or so, most lenders would say you need to wait for 3 years if you've just immigrated into the UK. You have your maybe tier 2 visa or tier 4 visa or any type of visa that allows you to legally stay in the UK, legally work in the UK, but you don't necessarily have a credit built up. So the first thing I tell people is start to build your credit. Get a bank account, get a credit card when you can. It's not about how much you get in, it's not about which provider. There are providers that are allows you easy access to quickly get on the property, on the credit system, so that you start building your credit, and that starts recording on you. So put yourself on the voters register if you're new in the UK. Put yourself on the voters register. Make sure that you are monitoring everything you're doing. So if you are able to get a credit card, make sure you are paying at least the minimum direct debit on that, so that you do not have any credit issue. So those are fundamental things I would say build first. There are some other solutions that allow you, even if you can't get a credit, that allow you to enter into the credit system. Maybe do a good Google search. I'm new in the UK. How can I build credit? What are the platforms that are available to me? So that is the first thing, because the UK is based on a credit system. So the earlier you start building your credit, the better it is for you to get access to many other options. But the good news now is the fact that there are few lenders that allow you to get a mortgage even if you've lived in the UK for maybe 6 months, which is fantastic. Like I said before, it's usually 2 years or 3 years, and you'll be asking for 75% deposit. But good news, those things have changed. So you don't need 25% deposit if you're buying your first house and you just moved into the UK. Given 6 months, you need to show your proof of income. You need to show the deposit amount, where you can potentially get 95%, 90% loan to value. It means that you only need 10% of the property value. This is a game changer. It doesn't require you to have lived in the UK for 3 years, or in some cases for 2 years. We can do 6 months now. And some of the lenders will allow you to go to 6 times your multiples. Fantastic stuff. So if you just come into the UK and you don't understand how the system works, start building your credit first. Make sure you're registered on the voters register. That just shows structure. That just shows you are now part and parcel of the UK system. So those are some basic things. But more importantly, you don't need to wait any longer to say, oh, I need a large sum of money as a deposit. You can start with 10% deposit. There are lenders that will do 5%, even if you've not stayed in the UK long enough. So let that not stop you if you're in that situation. I know a lot of people are in that situation, don't understand system works. They just feel, I'm just going to focus on work. Work is good, but try to understand how the system works. There's a simple way I say this when I go to maybe some churches or some organizations to talk about financial literacy. Your work is important, but let's break this down a little bit. Let's say you are earning 25K on average yearly, and you work for 40 years. That would mean you have 1 million that passed through your hand. Let's increase that a bit. Let's say you're working 50K a year. Over 20 years, you have gotten 1 million that have walked through your hand. But most people, over that period, because of expenses, because of living itself, Cost of living is now very high, as we know, and it keeps increasing through so many other factors that is beyond individual personal level. So 40 years or 20 years, you had £1 million pass through your hands as income. But most times, when you ask people, what have you done with 1 million? Most people would not have anything or significant thing say this is saved up. Most people would not have maybe a property to their name because they thought they can't afford it, or this is not the right time, or this is not possible for us, or we are going back to where we came from. We cannot do this. This is a scam, and all of those things. 40 years or 20 years, a lot of money have passed through people's hand. But take a property, look at the property you stay in, and look at the property value 20 years ago. Or look at the property value 40 years ago. That will start to shift your thinking about investment. Now, I always say it doesn't matter what has happened in the past. What happens is from now, what happens? So now take the same idea and take it to 20 years' time or to 40 years' time. How much would that property you're living in right now, how much will it be in 20 years? How much will it be in 40 years? That will start to shift your mind. And I say most people will become a property millionaire in the UK by just having one asset that they paid off over the 40 years. And that property, maybe in central London, maybe in sub London, maybe in near London, maybe in Manchester or in different places, that property over 40 years has grown to be in the hundreds of thousands, some even over 1 million. That is the magic when you think about having an investment, thinking about the future, thinking about the creating value in a way that you are not working for, that the value is created because you take that asset and you are able to structure yourself, you're able to structure the ownership properly. So that's the game changer. That's something I want everybody to think about. 20 years ago, how much is this property I'm living in worth? And 20 years from now, how much is it going to be worth? So prepare yourself properly. And I see myself as a global investment person, global investor. We talk to people from different places. The same applies, even if it's Nigeria, even if it's Ghana, if it's stuff. Think about it. Property 20 years ago, how much is it worth? And 20 years from now, how much would it be worth? So that's why I say, as a primary source of wealth creation, property is something that most people would use and understand. I'm not saying if you put your money in shares, not saying it possibly wouldn't have increased that much. That's not the conversation. Because sometimes, yes, with shares, you possibly need to put money regularly over time. Maybe that's where it's built up. But with mortgage, you're kind of paying for your rent at the same time living in a place. So that's fundamental thinking. I want you guys to think about that. So if you have any questions, maybe it's not been asked, it's not been answered. I've talked about cross-border investment, the leverage of using mortgage in the UK from wherever you are. Either you've not lived in the country before, you've not stepped into the country. That is definitely possible. We've talked about primary homes, either the property you buy for you to live in or the property you buy for investment. We've talked about that. And if there's any other question, please drop your question. We'll possibly wind up in the next 5-10 minutes. We've talked about if you're new in the country, what can you get? And do you have access to mortgage? And like I said, there's been a game changer in that space. You don't have to wait for 3 years to build up your life in the UK. You can access mortgage even from your 6 months. So we've talked about making sure you have the right protection. So that is important. That's something that a lot of people shy away from. making sure you have your will in place. And that's a no-brainer now. Like I said, if it's something that you're interested in, please, we would make sure with the partner we're working with that you are issued a free will for you. It's at no cost to you. So that is the basic thing. There's a lot more possibly we'll talk about on will, that you need to have your will in place. You need to have a LTA. That's your given authority to someone to take charge if you are in a position of health that you are unable to take control of your finances, of your health, or related matters. So that's an important thing. It's a legal term. It's a structure you want to have in place. A husband should have been in place for the wife. The wife should have been in place for the husband. So that's a very important structure. So we would help you to understand that more. So cross-border investment, I mean, if your pocket is about investment, encourage people get into understanding how the stock market works. Again, think about the continuum, not just, oh, the stock exchange has dropped 15% this year. Think about it over time. Investment thinking should be a mid-term to long-term strategy. So bear that in mind. So talking about that, there are some short-term strategy that you want to put in place. Short-term strategy would be, if anything happens to you, how much would you have saved apart to be able to take care of some things like that? You want to make sure short-term strategy, you want to put in some money early to just say, okay, I don't need this now, or I just need this money to be able to save for my deposit. So that's another thing that people might need support with. So there are some platforms that would help you to make sure that you are consistent with your savings. It could be your ISA. It used to be a fantastic deal before, but ISA is no ISA to buy property is no longer a thing, but you can still invest in ISAs. And you can use that. It's a tax efficient way of investing, especially for your deposits. So you can use that to build your deposits and still get some increase from that, depending on what you put your money in. If you're 40 and if you're below 40, I encourage you to do a LISA. That's a lifetime ISA, which allows you to put money in as part of your deposit. You can use it as a deposit, or you can use it as your future pension. But the good thing about that is the government tops that up for you, 25% top up. So that is very important. So if you are less than 40, please, I would encourage you, LISA, lifetime ISA. Please do that. That could be your short-term strategy to build a pot for your deposit, and then use that pot to then invest in property. So when you're thinking about investment, think about the short term, think about the mid term, think about the long term. So short term could be your deposit for your residential property or for your investment property. Short term sometimes could be your money you want to use for kids' school or whatever that is, or something that you know you want to be accessible to it between maybe 1 year to 3 years kind of mark. That's the short-term stuff. So midterm, you'll be thinking more 3 years to maybe 5 or 7 years, depending on what you are planning to do. And long-term, you're thinking 10 years plus. Like this money, I'm building it up for 10 years. I'm building up for many years and stuff. So please, the important thing is be aware of this conversation. Be aware of how this affects you. Be aware of the questions that you have heard or maybe not considered for yourself. It could be making sure that you have the right structure for your financial planning. Talk to a financial planner. Let them take you through the holistic process. Don't just think, all I want is life insurance, or all I want is this. There are blind spots that you are not aware of. So speak to a financial planner, qualified financial planner, not a salesperson, that would help you to put a structure in place. So it's been wonderful on this conversation. I can't see any question anymore, but I will do this regularly. Let's talk about property. Let's have conversations about things that we should be aware of. There are basic things that we need to do as a person growing in the UK, and the limitations that you may have there. You think, oh, this is not possible because of this. There could have been a lot of more stuff we could have talked about. Maybe the next time I have these sections, I would encourage people to ask the question ahead of time so that we would have much more questions. I've just gone through a lot of the familiar questions people ask, and I know it affects one person or the other. So it's important. Whatever you've heard, whatever you have seen or listened to, it's not going to make a difference if you're not taking action. And that action could mean booking a section to have a one-on-one conversation with our team, for us to help you see the blind spot, for us to help you put a structure in place, for us to help you on this journey. We work with our clients long time because we believe that's the value we bring to the table. It's a value you build up. We work with adults, in future work with their children, and that's generational planning. So we help you to think about generational planning. We help you to make sure you have things structured out, and you are just not just working and working hard, but you're working hard and working smart by putting the right foundation in place. So maybe another section we'll go into more depth about so many things, but one last thing I want to leave you with is be very careful of the advice you hear around. A lot of the advice that is looking like advice is actually detrimental to you. So be very careful what you're listening to. Make sure you do your research. Make sure you talk to professionals. Make sure you can challenge professionals to be able to know, why am I doing this? Why is this important? And that would help you. General advice would never help you. Whatever people say is possibly from their own perspective, or sometimes from the problems they've encountered. They don't talk about the things that have worked for other people, or it's worked for other people, but it's not working for them. So be very careful. Don't let that bring you down. Don't let that disrupt your plan. So wish you all the best. If you have further questions, please reach out. Telephone number is 078-555-43929. Drop us a DM. We will try to do this on a regular basis. And also for the future, ask your questions beforehand. And if you know anybody this will be useful to, please share this with them. Share it on your social. Let's come together and ensure that as a community, we can help 1,000 home ownership in the Black community. That's my passion. That's my interest. So please follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. Make sure you share this information. Let someone that would benefit from this, let them bless you for sharing this with them. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate having this conversation, and we would do this on a regular basis. So if there are any questions you have now or in the future, please don't shy. My name is Deji Nehan. Put that on Google. You'll get a lot of stuff. We've had a few books you can leverage on, and we will talk about maybe the books later in the future. Thank you. Have a wonderful time.